I get this question quite a lot, to what do we attribute our success? And I look at it quite differently, and I think the fact is that we've been able to survive not only COVID, but some of the other industry shortcomings that had already manifested before COVID. I think survival is success. What did we do? I think that we were agile, we were determined, committed. We took stock of what we had in reality in terms of the pandemic. We understood that this was a dynamic of uncertainty, and that we had to think on our feet right the way through it and take advantage of everything that we could do and do it well, and then build on the business from first origins. The most important element that I think brought us through is we took care of our staff in whatever way we possibly could. And fortunately, we were able to retain all of our jobs. We didn't shed a single job. Nobody was redundant, and everybody stood together like glue. And I think that through the adversity has created unity within the organization and a sense of belonging and a common vision. As we came out of the lockdown, route by route, we were able to add those routes on. We worked with the regulators, the civil aviation authorities, the competent authorities from neighboring countries like Namibia, and we were able to mobilize air access as it became available through the lockdown easing process. We feel that the industry had its problems before COVID. Arguably, there was too much capacity, and the fares that had been achieved before COVID were not adequate to cover direct variable costs across the board throughout the entire industry. What COVID did is it created the watershed that separated the survivors from those that wouldn't. So right now we are approximately 150% of where we were pre-COVID. So we've added capacity back into the system, but we haven't added irresponsible capacity. We've done it as the market demands, and we've created a better balance between supply and demand than what was there pre-COVID. That's worked in our favor. So we've never had a shortage of cash because of what we did in the way of the austerity plan that we had. And we've been able to use that cash wisely as best we possibly can in rebuilding the business.
I think all of us are wondering when you're going to perhaps move on to narrow bodies.
Well, the first step there is our Embraer 195 initiative. The Embraer 195 has more or less the same operating economics as the Embraer 190 on a trip cost basis. Right. But when you divide the number of units that you've got into the trip cost, you get slightly better operating economics. They're not quite on par with the market leaders, our low-cost carrier peers. And the next step after that will be clearly we've got to upgauge. And we're working on plans. We can't tell you exactly how they will materialize and when. But we realize that we don't have adequate presence on the trunk markets yet. The trunk markets are very much part of our long-term network strategic initiative.
What are your biggest single constraints to growth going forward?
We have to re-establish equity. So the balance sheet is going to be a constraint. One can have agility in a business and vision, and one can expand your horizons and increase your footprint and whatever, but you can't do anything without equity. And if you want to raise debt, then you have to ensure that your debt equity ratios are within your fiduciary responsibilities and your financial covenants. So the big constraint at the moment is going to be balance sheet in the short term, but we can see ways in which, if we carry on doing what we're doing at the moment, the balance sheet will be restored in due course.
Your further expansion as a regional carrier into Africa, you seem to have a friendly International Air Services Licensing Council for a change. Are you going to take opportunity to expand further into Africa?
We have air traffic rights which we haven't used, which we've had for quite some time. We will be exploring those traffic rights imminently. And we've also been awarded additional traffic rights which we applied for long ago, as far back as September, October, November in 2020 already. Those have now been heard by the International Air Services Council, and we have been awarded additional traffic rights. It's not our style to publicize that just at this moment in time. We're busy working on the letters of designation, the diplomatic channels where note verbal gets exchanged, and the foreign operators permits are being worked on as well. And I think in due course we'll make announcements as to where we're next going to expand the tentacles of Airlink within the region.